Hello, welcome to Appreciating Literature. Today we are starting the prose section and we have a beautiful story by O. Henry. The title of the story is The Gift of the Magi. Before we go to the story as such, let us have a look at the biography of the author, O. Henry. O. Henry, pseudonym of William Sidney Porter, was born on September 11, 1862, Greensboro, North Carolina, US, and died on June 5, 1910, New York. He was an American short story writer whose tales romanticized the commonplace. Here, romanticized means describe in an idealized or unrealistic fashion. Commonplace means the common people. In particular, the life of ordinary people in New York City. So, he mostly wrote about the common man on the street, especially in the city of New York. His stories expressed the effect of coincidence on character through humor, grim or ironic, and often had surprise endings, a device that became identified with his name and cost him critical favor when his vogue had passed. So, it is about his style of writing. Effect of coincidence, that means two events happening at the same time. And they are usually unexpected. And humor, you know what is humor? Grim or ironic. Grim means sad. Irony is actually, saying something and meaning the opposite. That is irony. So irony can be of different types. There could be situational irony. That could be the one applicable here, and surprise endings, like in movies and all that you find twist, we call it twist. So all these elements were in fashion in those days, at least during his time. But later, when this fashion got outdated, the people started criticizing him. That's the meaning here. In 1902, O. Henry arrived in New York, is Baghdad on the subway. So actually that term is used by the author to describe New York City. From December 1903 to January 1906, he produced a story a week for the New York Sunday World. So he was writing a story for this weekly or magazine. And he wrote one story every week, and also wrote for other magazines as well. His first book, Cabbages and Kings, in 1904, depicted fantastic characters against exotic Honduran backgrounds. Exotic means very strange, not familiar. Of course, Honduras is a country in Central America. Actually, it seems Honduras is a country which is the most dangerous place on earth to be a woman. It seems there they kill women for no reason at all. So it seems a very dangerous place for women. So be careful if you plan to go there. Then other works, both the 4 Million in 1906 and the Trimmed Lamp 1907, explore the lives of the multitude of New York in their daily routines and searchings for romance and adventure. So mostly he was concerned with the ordinary people's lives in New York City. Here multitude means the crowd, lives of the common people, their daily routines, the searchings or their yearnings or desire for romance and also adventure. And the former contained the widely popular story, The Gift of the Magi. That means the 4 million is a collection of short stories. And this particular story, The Gift of the Magi, is found in that collection, the 4 million. Heart of the West, written in 1907, presented accurate and fascinating tales of the Texas range. Actually, Texas range needs some explanation what it means actually. Actually, Texas was well known for this kind of Western movies and all that. I don't know if you have heard of that. Mostly dealing with cowboys. So I still remember the first movie I saw titled Hunter Rifles, and the last one was The Lone Ranger. So beautiful adventurous stories. So actually in the Heart of the West he is actually describing the stories about cowboys. Then in rapid succession came The Voice of the City in 1908, The Gentle Grafter 1908, Roads of Destiny 1909, Options the same year, and Strictly Business in 1910, and Whirligigs in 1910. Whirligigs contains perhaps Porter's funniest story, The Ransom of Red Chief. Again, it is related to cowboys. Red Chief means Red Indians chief. Despite his popularity, O. Henry's final years were marred by ill health, a desperate financial struggle, and alcoholism. So towards the end of his life, he was really struggling with poor health and lack of finance. Maybe that led to his alcoholism. And even his marriage was not very happy. He had a second marriage which ended in tragedy. After his death, 3 more collected volumes appeared. It doesn't mean that he wrote after his death. His books were published after that, that's all. There were Sixes and Sevens, 1911, and the Rolling Stones, 1912, and Waifs and Strays, 1917. Actually, waif means a homeless person who is almost like beggar. Stray also means same, people on the street, almost like homeless beggars. Now we come to the story as such, The Gift of the Magi. Of course, we should know what is the meaning of the term Magi. Magi is actually plural. The singular of Magi is Magus. Magus actually means an astrologer or a magician or even a priest. So it is related to the birth of Jesus. You find 3 kings. They are also called kings. So we don't know exactly whether they were kings or magicians or priests. Could be anything. Anyway, the tradition says that these 3 people came to meet the baby Jesus and offered him gifts. That is the story. But of course, the title of the story is not exactly what is in the content. We will see what the relation between this title and the story as you go through the story. So let us start the story. The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies means coins. So here you find the picture there. A lady sitting there by the table and counting the coins and currencies, money. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony The such close dealing implied. Now this tells the story of how he saved that money by arguing, by bargaining with the grocer or vegetable man. Here bulldozing means actually kind of fighting. So she had to spend money so stingily. That means he was trying to save money so badly. That's the meaning here. Until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony. Here imputation means accusation. That means the people with whom you are bargaining, definitely they will accuse you of parsimony. Parsimony means actually miserliness or stinginess. They may not say it loud, but it is there silently talking to you. Their face we can see. That's the meaning of silent imputation of parsimony. That such close dealing implied. So when you are going almost every day to these people and bargaining with them, it is very embarrassing for both the person and also for the trader. So that shows her desperate situation and her financial situation. 3 times Della counted it. So she is making sure how much money is with her. $1.87. That's all she had. And the next day would be Christmas. Let's see what the meaning of that. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So after counting that money that was with her, you find the reaction. She is feeling so bad about it. So she is falling on the shabby little couch. Couch is here as a sofa. And howling. Howling means cry loudly. So she is bursting into tears after counting that money. So Della did it. That's the only thing she could do, which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles and smiles, with sniffles predominating. So it shows or portrays the desperate condition of that lady. So which instigates means which somehow forces you to think about the moral reflection. That means you think about her life or the life of the common man that is made up of sob. You know what is a sob? Sobbing. In Malayalam we say engaladikya. Sniffles. When you have a cold, you will be forcing the block through the nose like that. That is sniffling. So when you cry also you do that. So that is sob, sniffles and smiles. At the end, of course, you will smile. So these are the 3 things that is constituting a common man's life according to the author, with the sniffles predominating. That means more than smiling, that person will be sniffling or sobbing most of the time. While the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. So now you find this lady Della going through these 3 stages. The first stage is sobbing, next comes sniffling, third is smiling. So now from sob she is now going to sniffling. While let us have a look at the house, the rooms there, the condition of that. A furnished flat at $8 per week. So that shows the impoverished condition of that house, how poor it is. It did not exactly beggar description. Here beggar description is a kind of idiom in English. It means defy attempts at or it is difficult to describe. That means a furnished flat at 8 actually gives a clear picture of how that home is looking. But it certainly had that word on the lookout for the mendicancy squad. Here mendicancy squad. Mendicancy means beggary. Squad is actually police. So the police will be looking out for beggars on the street. They will be always catching them and then putting in the rehabilitation center. So that is the meaning of mendicancy squad. People who are police who are in charge of handling beggars. So here what the writer means is that the home looked like almost like a kind of beggars asylum where beggars live. So that is the miserable condition of that home. In the vestibule below was a letter box into which no letter would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. So he goes to describe the surroundings of that home. Vestibule is actually the hall. As you enter the house, the first room where people are received, that is called the vestibule. And there was a letter box into which no letter would go. That means the letter box is simply kept there without any purpose, or it doesn't serve the purpose. Maybe nobody is writing letters. And there was also an electric switch from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. That means that electric switch is dead, doesn't work. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. There was also a plate name. That is the name of the house owner, James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. That means that name plate had been hung there carelessly or with a kind of carefree manner when this person was having better payment. Those days he was earning $30 per week. Now his income has shrunk to $20. That means his financial source is shrinking. He is becoming poorer and poorer. So now they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. That means as the finance is shrinking, even the name is shrinking according to the author. Instead of Dillingham, they would rather use D, the short form for Dillingham. It only shows that the financial condition of that family is very, very bad. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della. So here the author is describing the relation between the heroine, that is Della. Her full name is Mrs. James Dillingham Young, that is wife of Mr. James Dillingham Young. So whenever he used to reach home in his flat, his wife would hug him with a lot of love, as when you are greatly hugged. Look at the last sentence, which is all very good. See, there is a kind of element of irony there. So it only shows the poor condition of their finance. I mean, hugging is all very good, but look at the condition of their life. That's what the author is meaning here. Kind of intended irony there. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. So now she completed her crying, sobbing, sniffling and all that. Now she is looking at her face and trying to make it beautiful by touching with the powder cloth. A rag is actually kind of old cloth for touching the face with the powder. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. Look at the beautiful rhyming words, or look at the alliteration used there. it actually gives us a picture of that woman's condition there. The color grey means colorless, it lacks color. It means that her life is lacking color, colorless life. She stood by the window and looked out dully. Dully means without interest, rather unhappy. And she is looking at the grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. Beautiful, almost like poetry here. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. So it was a kind of tradition to give a gift to people who are close to you. And Della, being the wife, she was thinking of something to give to her husband Jim. So she had been saving every penny she could for months with this result. So for months she had been trying to save money to give him a present, but then she could only manage this $1.87. $20 a week doesn't go far. So with that income, she was not able to save much. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. So here you find this, rather middle income group finding hard to manage with the income. Always you find the income is less than the expense. Usually the expenditure is much more. They always are usually. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. So that was all she had. Her Jim. Look at that. That means he is the dearest person to her, the most important person in her life. So she wants to give him something memorable, something valuable. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him. So she had been planning for a long time what to buy as a gift. Something fine and rare and sterling. Sterling means valuable or precious. Something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. That means the gift that she is giving should be worthy of Jim. That means he should be proud of having that. Or he would be rather surprised with that gift. He will be proud of carrying that gift with him. That's what she intends. Her desire is that. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. Now, for those who don't know what is a pier glass, you can have a look at that in the picture. Usually it is a large mirror placed on the wall of the room, usually in the dressing room and all that, so that the whole person can be seen in the mirror. Between the windows means it's on the wall in the room. It's a huge mirror. Perhaps you have seen a pier glass in an $8 flat. So that means the quality of that glass or mirror will definitely be not that good. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. That means mirrors of that time must not have been as good as today's. You won't be able to see very clearly in that mirror. So that's the meaning of that. Unless you take a lot of time looking at that, and then you will have a technique of looking at that, only then you can get a clear picture of your reflection. Here conception means idea. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. So she knew she was not very fat, she was very slim. So she knew how to get a good image of herself in that mirror. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Whirled means turned, twisted. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. So her eyes were shining, but her face was rather dull. Maybe she is thinking about what she is going to do next. That's why her face was not very colorful or rosy cheeks. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. So she is just unfolding her hair, and then it is falling to its full length. She is having a close look at her hair, maybe for the last time. Now there were two possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. So both of them had two valuable things which they were greatly proud of. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. So there was a very precious possession of Jim. That is a gold watch which he inherited from his father, and the father had it from the grandfather. So it is a kind of a legacy handed down from generations. Of course, not like the watches of today, which cannot be used for more than 1 month or so. We change watches almost every year or so. Of course, it doesn't last. But those days, the watches were of good quality and they were meant to be kind of inherited from generation to the next. And the other possession was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window someday to dry, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Here you find a kind of far-fetched imagery, almost like a hyperbole. Let's see what it is. And I don't know whether you have heard of Queen of Sheba. Actually, she was supposed to be the richest queen with lots of jewels and gifts. Just like, we had Jayalalitha, who had lots of wealth. Maybe she was trying to follow the Queen of Sheba. Now, what the Queen of Sheba has to do with Della? Here, they are always telling that if Queen of Sheba had been her neighbor, that means living across the flat, she would show her hair like that in front of this queen, just to make her jealous. That means even the queen with that kind of immense wealth would feel jealous of Della, not because of her wealth but because of her hair. That means her hair was so beautiful, so lush and dark, which would make even the Queen of Sheba jealous. So that's the meaning of that sentence here. Then we have got another far-fetched imagery here. Had King Solomon been the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. Now, if Della could make the Queen of Sheba jealous, here Jim could do the same with King Solomon. Again, another great king with a lot of wealth. How could he make King Solomon jealous? That is definitely by showing off his watch. That means it was so costly, so precious. That means if King Solomon had been the servant there, suppose, that means he would pull out his watch just to show him. That means even King Solomon would be jealous and pull or pluck his beard from envy or jealousy. So we have got two far-fetched comparisons here, or imagery, almost tending to be a hyperbole. It only shows that just like Della's hair, Jim's watch was also very, very precious and very invaluable. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. Look at the imagery here. The author is comparing her beautiful hair to a cascade. You know what is cascade? Cascade is a kind of small waterfall. So when she let that hair down, it was rippling and shining like a beautiful waterfall. Brown waters. Of course, her hair was not like water, it was brown color. Again, there is a kind of metaphor here, comparing her to brown cascade. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. So how long was her hair? It reached her knee almost, and she was wearing it like a kind of dress. Garment means dress. And then she did it up again nervously and quickly. Again he tied up her hair once again, but then by the time she became very nervous because maybe she knew what she is going to do with that hair. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or two splashed on the worn red carpet. So now she is falter means becoming unsteady. She was almost going to faint, but then she managed to stand properly. But you can see a tear or two welling up in her eyes and then dropping to the carpet down there. So she is very, very unhappy and she is on the verge of crying. On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat. Here she is in a hurry, she is putting on her brown jacket and also her brown hat. She is ready to go out. With a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. Here, whirl of skirts means as she is walking, you can see the skirt is moving around. And brilliant sparkle in her eyes are still shining. She fluttered out the door. She is moving out of that door and into the street, down the stairs. So she is going out. And next part we'll see what she is going to do, what is the purpose of her outing. I think with that we have come to the first part of this beautiful story, and until we meet again to see the next part, it is a goodbye. Thank you.